So back on the 1942 Harley, you can see all the little tags. That's just stuff to remind me where I have to do a little bit of work or adjust something or install something. So I'm gonna go over it really quick with you guys what we have to address. So we need the axle spacer nut. I gotta make the spacer for this and then find a castle nut for here. I have the castle nut on this side, but it's too deep here. I have to get one that's a little bit smaller where you put your wrench, because I can't get to the point where I can put the cotter pin in. So that's a problem. I also have to install the grease zerk on the hub. Should have done that earlier. I did install the mud flap. I am using hex bolts instead of the proper bolts. Because it comes all the way through, and I can use washers and stuff. The originals are a little bit short. Having an issue I found out once I put the back wheel on. You can see where the brake pedal is hitting the skid plate. So we're gonna have to do a little relief there. The hoses, I'm gonna need to put some Teflon on the ends. I need to get the one bolt still for the carburetor. Need to find the proper bolt and I guess like fiber washers for the three hoses. This one should just, the back one should just screw right in. And then this one I need a bolt, and this one I need a fitting that goes from there to there. So we'll find that. I do have one little issue I don't like. So on the original spark plug wires, I've tightened them down as best I can with this little nut here, and they're loose. I'm not really sure what that's all about. We'll have to look into that. Got to put the chain guard in. Once I do a relief for the brake pedal, I can check the back brake and just make sure it, it stops, but I need to adjust it better. Got to put the rear chain in. Waiting on the seat, waiting on the saddlebags. I got to still fix the ends for the tail light and then reinstall that. I got to install the rear catch. I got to install the clamps for the oil bath air cleaner, and one of them is correct. The other one I need to find. I got to figure out what's going on here for a bolt. If there's another spacer, I'm not sure. I got to install the primary chain, primary cover, install the brake part that goes onto here that attaches behind the rocker. I got to install the U-bolt for the kickstand now that I can. We did that. Obviously, I got to work on the back, on the gas tank and get that all painted. Got to install the mirror, and we got to fit the dash, the ignition, and the speedo. So when you put it on, the dash is not fitting nice. So got to do a bit of work there. And grease zerk on the back wheel. I don't know if I said it, rear stand catch. And not much else. So, it really feels like we're kind of in the home stretch here. We got to install the air cleaner tube and all that. That's got to get all parkerized, and a couple little pieces there, but she's coming along. Thanks for following. Thanks for watching the progress of this bike, and hope you learned something. I, of course, learned something, always. And, once we're done this one, we're going to work on this one or that one. I haven't decided which one I'm going to actually work on next, but one of them will be the next restoration. So I've been getting some progress on the bike. We've installed the rear catch for the rear stand. A couple other things. We got the grease zerks on the front and back hubs. But I ran into an issue and it was stumping me. I was kind of like, what am I doing wrong? What am I missing? Am I missing parts? And it comes back to the flexible oil lines. So again, when I got this project, it came with a bunch of these flexible oil lines. There's 3 different ones, and there's actually one for the fuel. So I'm going to show you some stuff that was kind of concerning, and if you run into the same issue, at least I can explain what's going on. So the first one I want to go through is the vent line. Okay, so this one goes from the engine case, kind of behind the oil pump, and this goes into the bottom of the tank. And you use this this bolt that, you know, has a hole in it so that the oil can pass through. So ideally it goes in here, but here's what happens. It actually stops. So with this kit that I actually got, I have an idea where it might have come from, but I'm not going to reveal that. You know, just be aware that there are kits out there that were being sold that weren't proper. So in my stash of stuff, I found, you know, an original one that someone had made into a hard line, and you can see how it goes in the way it's supposed to. This one goes in only this far. So, you know, basically what I have to do is I'll have to machine this out just a hair to accept it. And if we go back to a steel line, same thing, goes right in. So, you know, again, you're not, you know, I was kind of thinking, did I get the wrong, do I have the wrong bolt? Do I have like a fitting? You know, you're questioning all this stuff because, well, that seems like a simple thing that you would know that this needs to go through this and machine this to the proper, you know, size, but they didn't. So, you know, if you end up with these kind of flexible lines, you know, just understand that it's not you, it was the maker. All right, that's number one. Here is either the feed or the return, I can't remember. So again, I look at this, I go to put it into the tank here, and I've got an extra tank right here that needs some repair. You can see I got the back side all gone. So while I was working on the bike, I put, just get this in the right position, I go to start screwing this in. Watch closely. It goes in, and it goes in without screwing it in. Okay. So again, what's going on? Go through all my stuff and I find this. So this is another fitting that you'd use for hard lines. And it automatically starts screwing in. So I put this on one of the Facebook pages, and then someone reached out to me and explained exactly what happened. You know, 10 plus years ago or less. The guy I got this project from said these were over 10 years ago. So I can't say for sure who the maker was, but this one individual, he explained to me that there was a company making them, and instead of creating a taper here, they went straight. Now it's so hard to see the difference, but I don't know if you can see. Let's go here. See how there's this side has a little bit of a taper and this one's straight cut. So that's the problem. So, you know, again, I'm sitting here going, what am I doing wrong? What am I missing? You know, first off, is this oil tank been, you know, someone's modified it to fit something else, and you start questioning all this stuff. It's not you. It wasn't me. manufacturer of these lines, instead of just simply cutting these, this is a pipe fit, I believe, and this is just machined straight. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna probably end up making, because I want to use the flexible oil lines, what I'm gonna probably end up doing is making an adapter that my machinist will have to do, and just, you know, make a pipe fitting on one side and then just a machine fitting on the other side. So I hope that if you are using these, you realize what a little, you know, there's some issues here, okay? I have 2 sets of these, so I'm gonna end up getting a couple of adapters made, and just because these are correct for WLC, and that's what I'm building. So just wanted to bring that up with you guys, you know, just really make sure that you see how this one goes right, screws in nicely. The other one just slides in, and it will tighten if you go far enough, but you know what, this isn't an electrical fitting or anything. This is an oil. If one of those lines popped off and the oil started coming out, you know, disaster. Not worth taking a chance, and that's not how I want to build this bike. So thought I'd share that with you. One other thing I'm going to show you in a second here. So I was working on the kickstand, and 45 seem to be famous for having a bad kickstand spring. Okay, I haven't found anyone who actually makes one that the spring is in the right length. These ones are usually a little bit longer, and what happens is when you put your kicker down, it kind of falls back. It's not like a big twin spring where it holds it really nice. I've never found one anyway, so I started putting one together, and I had this mount, and when I put it all together, it literally fell. And I was like, what's going on now? Like, is this spring that bad that it's not even holding it up at all? Well, upon closer examination, I started seeing striations back here and in the front. And I don't know if this is original. I don't believe it is. After looking and finding this one. So this looks to me like a more of an original one. And what you see the angles? Okay. With this 90-degree angle, and it probably wasn't a 90 when I started, but you know, it bent, and it just doesn't allow the tension of the spring. So I'm replacing it with this one. I have to parkerize it first, but I pulled this out of one of my boxes of kickstands, and this should take up a lot of the slack that this one was allowing. Right, so I'm gonna look at my blue bike and stuff and see if I have one that is maybe not at the correct angle, and hopefully that helps out, because I've never had good luck with the kickstands on a 45. They always seem to be not as tight as they should be. So if you guys know of something that I don't, let me know. I just know that I always put a safety on my kickstand. I just have a couple of zip ties, and I just literally throw the zip tie off it's off the floorboard strap, and I just throw it around the kickstand, and never once has it fallen down since. But prior to that, there was a few times I'd be going down the highway, and all of a sudden my kickstand was right out sideways. So not a great thing. Could be very dangerous. Nothing happened to me, fortunately, but let's hope that this one is what makes this the kickstand tight. So we got the kickstand all installed. It's holding. It's not, like I say, it's not as good as a big twin, but it'll hold. I'll still put my safety strap on like I always do, but that's done. So after parkerizing the nut right here on the brake backing plate spacer, We installed it, and then when we went to put on the nut on the axle, washer's too thick in relation to where the cotter pin has to go through the axle. So there's a cotter pin on here to just make sure that that front nut doesn't come loose. So I got to decide if I'm going to simply find another washer that's a little bit thinner, or machine this one down. I haven't figured it out yet, but this is the kind of stuff you always got to play with. That's an aftermarket axle I had to use. I didn't have an original one. We also got the primary chain on. So we got the new primary chain on. You can see it's a little bit loose. So there's a whole series of things that has to happen for us to tighten the chain up. But first I want to just show you, I got the hose back on. We've got one clamp on. Parkerized the clamp that holds the bottom of the air filter, oil bath air filter. So I have more of these clamps, but they just didn't parkerize as nice as I wanted to. So we'll put the other one on after. So if you've never worked on one of these bikes before, it's a little bit different than like your current shovel head or Evolution or whatever the case may be. So in order to tighten up the primary chain, there's 3 bolts on underneath the transmission, which is a little bit tougher to get to now that we have the skid plate in. And then there's like an adjuster on the back that will pull the transmission back. So if this bike was done and we're going down the road, I've had to tighten my chain, every 500 to 1,000 miles. And for various reasons, it's just either it's not getting enough oil or whatever the case may be. It gets a little sloppy, and you can really feel the difference when you're riding. I mean, I can feel it. It just feels, everything feels tighter. Everything just runs smoother when that chain is just at the right spot. Now, we don't want to tighten it to where it's, taut. You want a little bit of flex in there. So that's what we'll have to do. But to give you an idea what happens when you tighten your primary chain, because you're moving your transmission back. If we had the gas tank on here, we would have to adjust. That's the shift rod for the shifter on the hand shifter. Because you're moving the transmission back, now you have to adjust the shifter rod, because it doesn't go into gear either on first or in third. It all depends on how you're moving it. And then once you get that all figured out, once you got the primary chain nice and tight, everything's cinched down. Now, a little word to the wise: when you're getting close to where you want to tighten down the transmission, kick the bike over a few times. Just find, there's gonna be spots on a chain, usually not when it's new, but when it's used, you're gonna have tight spots and you have loose spots. So you want to go to the tightest spot and then make it at least have some play. And that happens all the time with chains. And then just as you're going to start tightening it down, watch your chain, because as soon as you start tightening up that transmission, it will tighten up the chain. Okay? So just make sure you're kind of watching that. If you feel like it's a little too tight, back it off, move the transmission a little bit forward, and just make sure you got enough slack in the transmission, in the primary chain. So once you get to that point, usually what happens is now your secondary chain gets loose, because you're pulling the transmission back, because your chain's stretching. So you're gonna pull the chain back from the motor. And then what happens is you pull the transmission back. Now your secondary chain is loose. So again, loosen up your axle nuts, everything, and push it back with your axle adjusters until you get the right play on the chain. Well, you're not done yet, because now that you've done that, because this is a mechanical brake, what you have to do is you have to take the there's an adjuster here on the back of the brake rod, and you're gonna have to adjust that. And same thing, just make sure that when you you put that brake on, that first off, it's not riding the brake, but second, you got, when you push down on it hard, it stops. So just a little, just a little idea to show you how, how everything's in relation to each other on these old bikes. Primary chain, secondary chain, shifter, brake, all of it kind of comes into effect when you start playing around with this stuff. It's not difficult. Probably the most difficult thing you're going to have is the shifter. And what happens is either it won't go into first, or it won't go all the way into third, or it'll kind of pop out. So best thing to do is what I would do is I put 2 half-inch wrenches in my pocket and I go for a ride. And I'll go down the road and you'll know it right away. You'll feel like it doesn't go all the way in to either first or all the way into third and hold. You'll just feel it. You'll get to learn it. So it's all trial and error, and hey, good luck with it. It's once you get these things going, and there's not much more fun than that. I used to ride a rigid shovel. I've ridden stock shovel heads, stock pan head, but I love the 45s. They're such a cool feeling. With a 45, you can get all the feeling of a knucklehead, okay? So there's gonna be people who are gonna go, no, you can't. Yeah, you can. If you don't think about the power and the extra gear, the ride is exactly the same. You are still riding a rigid frame with a pogo seat, with a Springer front end, with mechanical brakes, with a hand shift and a foot clutch, an internal throttle, a 6-volt system, so many of the same components. So if you're ever, I want a knucklehead, buy a 45. They're indestructible. They'll rut. You can't wear them out. You know what I mean? And you get the same ride. You get the same experience. Yeah, not as much power, not a 4th gear. That's about this difference. Anyway, let's get back to this. Got the chain guard on. And once I'm done tightening up the primary chain, I'm going to do the secondary chain. And one other thing I got done tonight. So I took the hose off, and then I just opened up that passage. It's just a little bit more, so I can get the bolt in there. Well, there's a specific name for that bolt, but I can't think of it right now. Anyway, so a couple more pieces done, and continued progress. So got the tail light all installed, and I tried doing the pins, putting new pins in, and the other ones, the originals, were still holding a little bit. And I had thought about different ways of, trying to get them to stay in position, gluing them, putting new pins, all these things. And while I was putting the new pins in, I was looking for a adhesive, and I came across this stuff that I used for when I was doing leather seats, gluing the leather onto the foam. And it's this 3M product, and it's like this orange spray. I just put it away, but it's like a tacky. It doesn't harden really. It kind of stays a little bit flexible. So I just put a little bit onto the inside of these pins, and again, it's almost sticky, so it holds it well. So I just gave these a little touch of that, and man, they're sticking in there good. So we're gonna go with that. If something changes, well, I still wouldn't mind finding new ones. They're just stupid expensive for what they are, especially with exchange and shipping. But for now, that works. I tested the lights. The lights work. Very happy. One of the other things I did was I removed the chromed nuts on the ends of the kicker. I was going to try and find some, ones I could clean up like, you know, if they're cat plated, and then parkerize them. But I seen these brass ones I had, and I thought, you know what? I like it. So I'm putting them on. And the brass kind of fits with the oil lines, and then it kind of matches the ignition. So, yeah, correct? No. Do I care? No. Does it look great? Yep. So, again, sometimes you got to do stuff that just makes you happy. And then what I did is I found a thinner washer, just enough. Like, literally, it's just a hair smaller, and I was able to get the cotter pin in. So, got that done. So because, you know, spring is getting here, and it's kind of creeping up on us pretty quick here in Manitoba, I'm in a rush now. I really want to get this bike done. So I've had this tank. I got this tank from a guy, and yeah, it's not great. There's been some questionable welds that were done, and instead of spending more time on it and fixing it, to, you know, pressure testing it and everything, this, like, the inside of this tank, it was cut all along the seam, and then you know, the dents were fixed, but they weren't fixed great. So I'm just gonna leave that for another project. You know, I can use that on the adventure bike, where I don't care how it looks. So took these. I've had these tanks for about a year. They're really nice tanks, and I don't know why I was like saving them. I gotta save them. I want those tanks on something else. Well, what am I saving them for? I'm gonna save them for this bike. So I'm gonna pull the gas side off. I'm gonna get that one painted to match, and it's weird. Sometimes you get these parts and you're just like, I want to save them for something else. Well, what am I saving them for? So this tank, we'll pressure test it, make sure everything's cool. From all accounts, it looks really good. I think it looks good. There's a little dent here, nothing crazy. Once I strip it, I'll know more. There's been some Bondo around here, so we'll see what's going on there. But they're pretty nice tanks from what I've seen so far. So we can get that progress done. And another thing I did too is I had the dash I was using. Well, I believe it's original. It just wasn't fitting right, and I couldn't explain it. So I pulled another one off one of my other bikes, and this one just fits so much nicer. If I can get it on with one hand, fits so much nicer. I still got to space out the ignition, but the other one was like, it was almost like it was twisted because I was having problems in the front. So we're gonna use this one. Again, what am I saving it for? Let's get this project done. So one of the things I had to address too is on this battery, here's your cover, and you can see it isn't gonna work. And that's because this new style battery has that little spigot for the air vent tube, and it's held up. So I got to decide if I'm going to relief this so I can drop the battery in or not. Still haven't figured out. Probably have to, just what I got to do. So I'll have to cut this down here a bit and then just give it a relief so that the battery can drop to where it goes, and then I can put the cover back up. Put the cover on. Just more stuff you got to deal with that you weren't anticipating. So we did a bit of machining today, and we finished up a couple other little things. So I found one of the fittings I needed, and we parkerized it this afternoon and installed it. So that one hose is done. On the back side, you can see this one right here. That's your vent line. That's installed. That's done. So what we still have to do on the I believe the feed is get that you know, some kind of transition piece. Let's see. That's going to go between here and there. So we got to figure that one out. Not the biggest deal. What we also did is we machined all the mounts, the little spacers underneath the ignition, and the dash is looking pretty good. We still have to, I might have to oblong the holes for the speedo because it's not fitting in on the dash as good as I'd like. So if we get that on, so once I pull it down, you can see the ignition's at a pretty good height, but it's hitting right in the backside here of the speedo, and it's kind of holding it up. So I can shift that speedo up just literally 1/16 of an inch. I've already loosened them off, tried pushing them, and it doesn't, there's not enough room. I need a little bit more. So that's that. We also machined, or I also put one of the mounts here. I got it reparkerized, looks better. And then machined a spacer in between here for the rear crash bar. And I did install a bolt so I can retighten everything up, but I'm gonna need a bolt that's just a half an inch longer. I didn't get, there's not enough room to put a washer lock washer combo. So we'll get on that. And now we're going to tighten up the transmission and so on. So the transmission's all tightened down. We got a little bit of play here on the primary. This is a new chain, so it will stretch quite a bit. So we pulled out the factory old Harley tool. I got the secondary chain all measured up, and we're gonna punch this these pins out so we can shorten the chain. In the past, you know, you grind them off and punch them out with a punch, but that was one pin. That's how easy it was. This one I've already started. I just want to see if it was going to work, and like nothing. We got the primary chain installed, axle spaced evenly on both sides. We also did a clearance on this. And if you wonder how I did that, I just beat it with a hammer down there. A little crude, but I'm not sure what else I could have done other than it's so tight everywhere else on the skid plate and fits. I don't know why it protrudes out right here. So yeah, beat it with a hammer. That's the way they would have done it back in World War II. So that's where I'm going to leave off on this video. There's not a lot left for us to do. I got to make the little tool to flare the rivets on the floorboards. We got to get the gas tank painted and installed. And then we can install the shifter rod, line the fuel tank prior to paint, of course. And install the fuel rod, install the fuel line, and the shift gate, etc. On the back end here, I got to make some gaskets for the tail lights. There's these little thin gaskets. I'm gonna probably relieve the battery box, fix the inner primary. There's a couple little dents in it. Then get that painted, and then play with the dash a bit more. Try and get that just to fit a little bit better. And then we're waiting on our seat and saddlebags. There's probably a couple little things that I don't remember off the top of my head that's on my list. But for the most part, the bike's pretty much, done at this point. I don't really have anything else I can do. So the next time you see this bike, it'll probably be in about 2-3 weeks. And that's when we should have the rest of the stuff painted and, you know, hopefully got my seat and saddlebags, because that's huge. I cannot wait for that. And then we'll be ready to pull it out of the basement shop, put it in the garage, add some fuel, add some oil, see what happens. But hope you enjoyed that. And this is Keith from Save the Rust. This is who we are. This is what we do. We love our old 45s. Have a great day.